Today I'm going to make a small response to a clip of CNN. Brooke Baldwin had two guests, Charles Kaiser and Paris Denard, and they were talking about the people Trump is going to put next to him when it comes to, well, running the United States. And Charles Kaiser kind of said something that made Brooke Baldwin cry. I don't know, crocodile tears was the first thing that came into my mind. But yeah, for your enjoyment. Oh, and she didn't start crying at the start. Of course, that's only at the end of the segment, but I'm going to run the whole segment anyway because there are some other things I like to say.
Political commentator and Trump supporter Paris Denard. Also, Charles Kaiser is with us. He's a CNN.com contributor and the author of multiple books, including The Cost of Courage, the story of how one French family fought the Nazis during the Paris occupation. Gentlemen, welcome. And thank you. Charles, let me just begin with you. I mean, now that you're hearing, we're getting some of the information coming out of this New York Times meeting that Trump has disavowed this particular group. Is that enough for you?
Okay, so disavowing a group is or is not enough. To begin with, why does he have to disavow a group? He's not part of that group. That group is speaking out in favor of him. Whether he likes them or not means nothing. But now you're going to ask a social justice warrior whether disavowing a negative is good enough. And the answer to that, of course, is no. Because you should never, ever agree with anything with a social justice warrior. Because as soon as you agree, you just gave credence to their complaint. And they will use that to keep complaining about the things you already said, yeah, I'm sorry, mate, not my doing. Well, yeah, you're sorry, therefore it's your part. And I know there will be people claiming that he's not a social justice warrior because he's not a millennial, etc., etc., etc. No, I'm sorry. In this case, social justice warrior is the behavior, not the person. And he behaves like a social justice warrior. More of that to be shown in a second.
Well, I'm delighted that Mr. Trump has visited my alma mater at the New York Times and said that he doesn't want to do this anymore, but I want to give him a little advice for the future if he does not want to stimulate the alt-right. First thing, he should never retweet someone with the name White Genocide who lists his address as Jew America. That's what he did in February.
So once I say you're a bad person, none of your ideas can be any good.
He should never ask his supporters again to give the Nazi salute, which he did at a rally in March. That's not a good idea.
And now a pledge is a Nazi salute. Well done.
In July, I think it was a mistake.
Wait, when did he say that?
In March, he asked his supporters to raise and pledge their support to his candidacy and promised to vote for him.
And even in your own repeat, you recognize it was a pledge. But yeah, reality be damned, right?
Okay.
There's plenty of video of that. Find that. And then, of course, in July, he retweeted an image of his opponent with the six-pointed Jewish star on it. I thought that was a mistake.
So that it said that she was a corrupt politician, that isn't a problem. But because it was said in a David Star, the David Star is the issue.
But we have bigger problems here.
Bigger problems than him asking the audience that they will vote for him. And bigger problem than he said something in a David Star? Well, then it must be huge.
Also in July, you know, he selected as his vice president the most homophobic man in American public life, a person who believes that gay people actually do not have the right to exist.
Well, I'll grant you half of that. I'm a bit curious about Pence myself. But at the same time, there have been people saying that he did this to prevent people from killing him. Because if they kill him, then they have Pence.
And then, you know, if you don't want to support the alt-right, don't choose as a White House counselor a man who uses the word nigger, whose wife says that he did not want his daughters to go to a school with too many Jews. And don't choose as an attorney general a man who calls the NAACP an un-American organization and who we learned in The Guardian today went so far as to prosecute
Charles,
two of the
just
people.
hang on a second. I appreciate you going through all of this, but please don't use the N-word on my show.
I'm sorry. Well, I never use the N-word except when I'm quoting someone who's been appointed by the president to serve in the Oval Office, since this is such a disgusting moment in our history.
No, I let that run a little bit, but it was brilliant. Just as soon as he said nigger, you see the other two eyes going open and they stop listening to anything he has to say. Well, he didn't have to say much anyway. And then they complain to him about it, or she does. And he's like, well, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm only using the N word, because then of course he can't say nigger anymore. I'm using the N word because he used it. But the funny thing is that CNN does allow the use of the N word if it is a word that someone actually uses. And I still don't understand why you call it the N word. I mean, everyone knows what you're on about. So why is N word not a problem, but nigger is? This is double think, people.
Let me go back to my original question. Currently, the fact that Mr. Trump has disavowed this group, is that enough?
I have to admit, though, she is sharp, because after all of that he's been spouting about why Trump is being bad, he actually did indeed not answer her question.
Well, you know, actions speak louder than words, and all of his actions have been things that encouraged groups like these, by appointing Jeff Sessions as Attorney General, by appointing Bannon as a White House counselor. You can't do one thing and then expect the other to happen. And just peering into the camera on 60 Minutes and saying, don't do it, doesn't seem to be very effective.
You see, even a simple yes or no question demands a story. And even at the end of that story, he didn't really answer the bloody question. Oh, he implied a bit, but he didn't answer it.
Paris, let me hear from you. Is it enough for you?
Now I wonder if this is her recognizing she's not going to get a straight answer out of this guy. But, yeah.
First of all, Brooke, I appreciate you making that comment about the utilization of the N-word. It's highly offensive and inappropriate, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, first off, let's not answer the question again, because, hey, the N-word, man, that's way bigger a deal.
The second point is this. I believe it is enough. I believe that Mr. Trump has to say these things, not every single time, because you can't go down the list every time some crazy whack job on the far extremist white supremacy says something in support of you. A gathering this large of people doing these things, which I think might be more of a PR political stunt, is appropriate, and it's the right thing to do.
And the second point is that he will answer the question. Yes, it is a good thing that he said sorry, but he can't be doing that every time some whack job says something. Well, why say it the first time then? I mean, how is the KKK endorsing Trump something that Trump did?
Looking into the camera is the right thing to do, because at this point, we can talk about what
happened. How do you feel when he retreats
Excuse me, sir.
people like this?
I did not interrupt you. Give me the respect I gave you.
How do you feel about that?
When I'm going to tell you right now, I believe it's appropriate that the president-elect looks into the camera and says, this is inappropriate, stop it, because words matter, and he's now the president-elect. And so he sets the tone, and the things that he's doing, it's appropriate, and it's the right thing to do.
But what about Steve Bannon? What about Steve Bannon?
So here we have a black guy, Paris, defending Trump and doing a good job at it, which then irks Charles, so he interrupts him, and Paris stands up for himself. Why are you interrupting me? Show me some respect. Fair enough. So he continues his story, and then guess what? Brooke interrupts him. But he's not calling her out. Why?
Paris, to Charles's point, in Breitbart, the most prominent platform for what we just showed, you know, the video we just showed, the Nazi salute, the white supremacists in this country. Are you okay with having Steve Bannon as the chief strategist at the White House?
Yeah, it's not as if you're setting him up to be a white supremacist. I mean, white supremacy isn't something Breitbart is advocating for, but never mind that. Let him make it sound that he is, and an anti-Semite if we can. And then we basically fall down.
Paris.
Yeah, I'm fine with Steve Bannon being the chief strategist, because I trust the president-elect's judgment.
See, that's how you answer a question. You have a question, you have an answer. Done. He does have more to say, though.
But I also know people who work for, let me just tell you a quick story. I was on this program on CNN. They were in the war room of Trump headquarters. Steve Bannon was watching the show on CNN and said, who's that guy speaking on behalf of Mr. Trump? Colleague said, that's Paris Denard. I used to work with him in the White House. He said, he's fantastic. We need more people like him speaking out. Let's help get him on our team as a surrogate. I know people at Breitbart in Los Angeles who have told me he happens to be a Jewish American. The two people in the office, one is Mexican American, the other one's African American.
So here he's just giving a factual basis of why he has no problem with Bannon. And you know Charles won't like that. You can see it in his eyes. and you can hear it in a second.
That's the Breitbart that I know. Those are the
Yes,
people
well,
that I know that work there.
the Breitbart that we know is the one who
sir,
says
your
that
interruptions are inappropriate. And so,
I do have to admit that I have some respect for Paris. I mean, he does get interrupted a lot, but he does try to stay respectful himself. Well done, sir. Oh, don't be alarmed. I'm just going to speed up the next bit a little bit.
so the point is, there are people who work at Breitbart every single day, and I'll be totally transparent. Are there things on Breitbart that I don't like that I think should not be on there? Sure. There's things that other things on Breitbart that I don't like. There are people that you put on this program on CNN that I don't like, but it's a platform, and all we have the First Amendment.
How do you feel about the tone you set by appointing an attorney general who is denied federal judgeship because of extensive evidence that he is a racist? How do you feel about that?
I think, first of all, I don't think you're the host of the show, so I'm not going to answer questions for you, but I will say...
The point is, we made that point multiple times on the allegations. They were referring to Jeff Sessions in the late 80s, and he was denied a judgeship in Alabama because of the allegations. He, I know, has refuted the claims that he's racist, but it's a point taken from Trolls' side, and that will...
He's refuted it.
Denied it, but, you know, that will make for contentious, potentially, confirmation.
Sure. I think the easiest thing to do is for people to talk about racism, like they use the race card to try to divide this country. I think Senator Sessions is an honorable man. I think he's doing a great job, and I know that particularly HBCUs, he's been a strong proponent of them. Many of them come from the South, and I know he represents them, and so I believe that he's going to be someone who's going to be confirmed. And we can go back and look at everyone's history. I'm sure the person sitting next to me on this program has said some things that he would regret. But
I think it's shameful that any African American would support this man to be attorney general.
Sir, you don't know why.
Okay, I just sped up this little bit because it's a repeat of moves. I mean, Charles is attacking Paris for the fact that Paris knows that Charles is lying, but other than that, same old, same old.
But I don't question your allegiance to the people that you support. I will tell you why I support Mr. Trump, who's the president-elect, because I think he's going to do good things for this country, and particularly good things for my community.
How do you feel when...
All right, gentlemen, we're done. We're done.
And Brooke has recognized that it turned into a he said, she said sort of a debate, so she's done with it.
I appreciate both your voices. I am still, the more I've sat here and listened to the fact that somebody used the N-word on this show, it is not okay. It is not okay, Charles Kaiser. I respect you. I enjoy having you on as a guest, but not okay. By the way, the claim that Mr. Bannon used the N-word, I've never heard of this, so there's that.
Okay, so this is the real crux of the matter. The end bit. How she's not okay with the fact that someone used the N-word on her show. I'm sorry, Brooke, it's just a word. But at the same time, it is funny that those defending the social justice narrative, and in a way he was. I'm not sure Charles identifies himself as a social justice warrior, but he was doing the job of a social justice warrior. And funny enough, he is the one that now has to defend himself because you used the N-word. Oh, goodness gracious me, how dare you! But the most interesting thing about this all is he didn't call anyone a nigger. He just said someone said the word nigger. And there's another clip I want to show you to put this a little bit into context as well.
Right. No, I disagree with you. We have been able to use that word on this network for the entire 9 years that I've been here.
We haven't done it.
Yes, we have.
Done it.
I've used it. I've done it the entire time that I've been here. And the guidance has been, if the anchor is comfortable saying the word, the anchor can say the word on this network. That has been the guidance.
Don, we had a correspondent a couple of years ago, and I've been here for 6, 7 years.
Said
and that correspondent was not was reprimanded for using that term.
No, she was not. She was reprimanded for using an expletive, not for using that word.
That's even worse, Don, because that means that using an expletive is worse than using a racial epithet.
But it's not.
What
she was
saying,
using the no. If she was on television calling someone that word, then yes, she should be suspended for it. But if she's on television using that word in context as to what someone said or what was used in a court of law or what have you, then no one should be suspended for that. We should not sanitize that word by saying this person called such and such the N-word. No, that person didn't call that person the N-word. That person called Sonny, I know you're going to get upset, that person called you or that person a nigger. They didn't say the N-word.
I can't believe, Don, that you, as an African-American man, is going to use that word just
of course,
so flippantly.
because
Words
we're
matter,
using
and
it.
you should know that.
I do know that. I have said the entire time that I've been here, I don't think we should bastardize a word. I don't think it should be used freely in songs over and over again.
We shouldn't use it
at all. But if you're using it in context of a story and it is relevant, you should be able to say it. In fact, I encourage people to say it because I think you should hear
You're encouraging people to use a racial
because you should hear
epithet.
the impact of the word. No, I'm not encouraging people to call people the N-word. I'm using it historically. If I'm a journalists are part of the record. It is our job to convey the truth and to tell people reality.
It is also
it's not
our job to realize that there are certain words that should not be used. It
shouldn't be used if you're calling someone,
our conscience, to use our journalistic conscience to make sure that we do not use words that are offensive.
I just had to show you this because using the N-word, or the word nigger, is apparently bound by some rules, but you can still use it. And then if a black guy tells you that you can use the word in news reporting, because basically what you're doing is you're giving a historic review of that period of time, even though that period of time could be today, yeah, you should be able to use it. And then the answer is, I cannot believe that you, as a black guy, say this. But he's not saying it as a black guy, he's saying it as a person and a reporter who feels that reality trumps feelings. It's kind of funny, but yeah, the whole word is a bullshit argument. Yes, the word nigger can be negative. It can be. But that doesn't mean you cannot say negative words, because you know how many words we can then just scrap out of our dictionary? Which we won't. We simply won't. And by saying the N-word, everyone knows you mean nigger. So factually, you're not changing anything. It's like pig Latin, so that the kids don't understand what you're saying. But the kids already know what you're saying. So can we stop with the pig Latin, please? Seriously. Anyway, this is my little take on this. Like, share, subscribe if you feel so inclined. And I hope to see you all next time. Oh, criticism, more than welcome. Bye-bye.